I cooked the dish exactly according to the stupid instructions of the manager, and now he wants me to pay for the customer's dry cleaning. At the beginning of the 2000-somethings, I worked in a cafe, a sandwich shop. The store was open 24 hours and was located in a very convenient place, an area with a large number of students and an active nightlife. Plus, there was an important highway nearby, which was used by everyone entering or leaving the city. When I got a job there, as a first-year student who wanted to earn some money, this location was one of 4 in the chain. Gary, the owner and manager, had bought the rights to it from the original owner. He also handled quality control because each location back then had its own suppliers. 2 years later, the original owners decided to create a corporation. They had many franchise offers, plus there were some problems with quality control. So they bought all the locations back and introduced a centralized approach to working with suppliers. For Gary, this turned out to be profitable. He owned the building, so he became a hired manager and also earned income from rent. At first, nothing changed. We were still in second place in the chain for sales. And then Dick came into the picture. Dick was the new regional manager. By that time, the chain had grown to a nationwide level, and he was responsible for quality control. He was considered the golden boy. He had a degree in business and helped with expansion. The problem was his ego. You see, Dick had taken a culinary master class. They gave a certificate, but nothing more. And he considered himself practically a chef. The first thing he did was install a crepe maker. Just crepes to go, folded into triangles. This is important for later. At first, it was not easy to learn how to make them, but pretty quickly, crepes became one of our hits. Even on slow days, we used up more than 10 liters of batter. Encouraged by his first success, Dick decided to apply his culinary knowledge again and introduce something else. At that time, Mexican cuisine was just starting to gain popularity in our country, mainly thanks to cooking shows. Dick decided to ride the trend wave and added Mexican items to the menu. In reality, this meant 2 new standard sandwiches and a crepe, the ones listed in the menu, plus several customization options for sandwiches and crepes. And that's when the problems began. As I said, Mexican cuisine was a novelty back then. Our local cuisine was completely different, especially when it came to spiciness. Many products used in Mexican dishes were either rare here or entirely unavailable. But Dick was confident this would be another of his victories when he found a supplier. And from that moment, quality went downhill. We started receiving buckets of ready-made chili and queso sauces, jars of pickled jalapenos, ready-made guacamole and pico de gallo, as well as blocks of white cheese labeled queso blanca. The queso sauce was an orange paste with some red specks. According to my husband, in bad lighting, it could be mistaken for spoiled sauce. The taste reminded me of plastic. For me, it was like clay. After my first taste, I was put off Mexican food for a long time. And the jalapenos? They actually weren't jalapenos. They were pickled Thai green chilies simply labeled as jalapenos. In reality, they were much spicier than they should have been. I didn't try the rest, but a few desperate customers risked it and were not impressed. The only item that sold at least a little was nachos, simply because it was Doritos drenched in warm queso. When heated, it turned into an orange goo with huge amounts of bacon and sausage. We complained about the quality to Gary, but he could no longer do anything, and Dick didn't back down. He became very annoyed that sales were low. He blamed us. You're bad at pushing new items. And blamed customers. These barbarians can't tell filet mignon from steak. But still stood his ground. And then one day, Dick came in with 4 people from the head office, 2 of whom were owners. They sat at a table and Dick came up and placed an order for 5 quesadillas. We had self-service, so I asked how he wanted me to prepare them. "Exactly according to my instructions," he replied. "All right, sir. I'll call you when they're ready," I answered with a smile. Now, about Dick's wise instructions for making quesadillas. First of all, they weren't quesadillas at all. They were crepes. The instructions went like this. Heat the chili. Start baking a crepe. Pour in 1.5 ladles of heated queso. Add 1 ladle of chili, 1 tablespoon of chopped jalapenos, 1 spoon of queso blanca, half a spoon of guacamole, and fold it all. This turned into a liquid mush that tried to leak out from all sides of the thin crepe. Normally, we only heated queso for nachos, and for crepes, we used it cold, letting it warm up from the hot plate so we wouldn't get that mush. And here came my moment of malicious compliance. Another girl and I prepared 5 quesadillas exactly according to the instructions. I brought the order to the table and stayed to watch the reaction. 5 men in white shirts and suits bit into the quesadillas, and almost simultaneously, they exploded, spraying themselves with melted cheese and red chili. Some bit into jalapenos and were hit hard by the heat. A few strong words were heard. We brought them bottles of water and packs of napkins so they could at least try to clean their clothes. Let's just say the head office was not impressed with the new menu. After they left, Dick returned. He was furious. He walked up to the counter, ignoring the queue, and it was rush hour, and started a scandal. The following dialogue is slightly censored. You stupid. You made me look like an idiot just because you don't like Mexican food. You can't even follow basic instructions. The cost of dry cleaning will be deducted from your salary. And then a bunch of more offensive phrases. I stood there in complete shock, as did the long line of customers who heard the outburst. And then Gary intervened. Go fox yourself. What did you say? Yelled Dick. I said go fox yourself. The girls followed your instructions word for word. Don't you dare blame them for your screw-ups, and don't you dare make them pay for your dry cleaning. I can do whatever I want. Once I deal with them, maybe I'll find a new manager for this location. I'd love to see you try. You will. I'll make it happen. And with that, he stormed out the door. Gary immediately called the head office and reported what happened, also giving them an ultimatum. If anything happened to the staff, they'd better start looking for a new location. 3 days later, we were told that Dick had been fired. His stunt was the main reason, but it also helped that one of the owners had a very bad reaction to the jalapenos. A week later, the Mexican menu was removed. In the process, it turned out that Dick had chosen the cheapest supplier who, as it turned out, had a very shady reputation, which explained a lot. I worked there until I finished my studies, and then I went to work in my field. About 2 years before I left, the Mexican menu returned. But this time, properly. The head office hired a real chef to consult and find decent suppliers. Now the ingredients are as authentic as possible. Pico de gallo and guacamole are prepared, fresh every day on site, and they finally have real queso. Although it took me a long time to dare try it again, and no pre-packaged, ready-made chili at all. My dislike of Mexican cuisine went away when my husband took me to a real Mexican restaurant, and I finally tried what real Mexican food tastes like. Thank you for listening to this story until the end. I look forward to your opinion in the comments. Also, check out our previous video, which you can see here, and good luck to you.